Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Paul Young Podcast. This is going to be episode 1 of a conversation that I had with a dear friend, Linda Yoder, who is married to Wes Yoder. You know, one of the beautiful things about this book for us is that out of the journey, we have found new friends. Found a lot of friends, but some of them just dove deeply into our hearts, and that would be Linda and Wes Yoder. So this is Storytelling with Linda Yoder, Part 1.
You're listening to the Paul Young Podcast.
How did you meet Wes?
How did I meet Wes?
Yeah.
At a bookstore. I was managing a Christian bookstore in California, and he came in there.
Why was he in California?
He was bringing a client into the bookstore to speak to all of us, and he set it up through me, and we met there, and his first thoughts of me were, boy, that girl walks like a duck. Not, oh, she's beautiful. I want to meet her. I want to go out with her. No, she walks like a duck. Yeah, that's where it all began.
First, tell us a little bit about Wes's history. Where is he coming from?
I mean, coming from...
Like, where did he grow up?
We're a good lesson in opposites attract. He grew up in a wonderful little Mennonite community. His relatives were either Amish or Mennonite, and very wonderful parents, the two best humans I've ever met in my life, next to you guys. And they were just amazing close family, large farm, 7 siblings. He grew up just in a good, wholesome, wonderful way. And I grew up completely pagan in California. So it's like, could we be more opposite? No, not possible. Yeah, I met him. I was dating somebody else quite seriously at the time. I met Wes, and it was just kind of an instant something or other, which this story kind of leads us into that as to why I actually married Wes and did not marry the other guy. But yeah, he was total opposite of anybody I'd ever dated. He was the kindest human being I'd ever met, and so gentle and so sincere and so unlike so many of the guys in California that I was spending time with. So it was good. It was wonderful. He swept me off my feet.
Kind of did, because you still...
Kind of. Well, I was in a bit of a love triangle, but that's a whole other podcast that'll never happen. But yeah, it was kind of a scandal at the time. I kind of dumped the other guy and up and married Wes.
Okay, so tell us the events leading up to dumping the other guy.
Well, the events that you want to talk about. I went over, the guy I was dating was Steven, and he lived in this really deluxe, I don't know if they were condos or apartments. I'm really not even sure. But it was like kind of like going to the Garden of Eden. It was so beautiful. And you had all these little paths that wandered through this, lots and lots of foliage and greenery. And even in the middle, they had a bird sanctuary with 2-story bird cage with all these exotic birds. I mean, the place was beautiful. That night, I went over there to watch The Godfather. Yeah, I've never watched it since. But went over to watch The Godfather, and it was really late by the time I left. I don't remember, it was like midnight or 1 a.m. Steven's unit was way in the back, and guest parking was way in the front, the very front. And it was very isolated, all by itself, dark. And only thing else out there was racquetball courts and then a massive soybean field. I mean, you're just out there. And you have to walk all the way from the back to the front down this lovely little winding path through the gardens that goes around and around and around and around. And that particular day, when I was getting ready to leave, he just opened the door and showed me to the door. And I remember thinking for just that moment, are you kidding me? Are you not walking me? I mean, it's dark, it's late, and that parking lot is not anywhere you really want to be in by yourself at night. I mean, it was a very nice side of town, but still, just that moment I thought, that's odd. And he was tired and wanted to go to bed. And the moment I walked out the door, the very moment, I was assaulted with just unbelievable sense of evil, absolutely assaulted with it. And I knew that there was something really wrong, but I was so new in the faith and so young and dumb that instead of listening to that Holy Spirit saying, no, this is not what you want to do, I immediately just started quoting scriptures. So I was like, oh, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. The rod and thy staff, they comfort me, blah, blah, blah. Perfect love casts out fear. And I'm sure God was up there thinking, I am trying to talk to you. Will you please quit quoting scriptures to me? I mean, I was just going to town with every scripture I knew about fear or whatever and just walking along. But at this point, I didn't see any evil or see any danger. And I'm walking along the path, still quoting my scriptures. But as I'm walking along, the sense of evil is getting more and more powerful. And I didn't know what it was. I couldn't identify it. I knew something was really, really wrong. And as I was walking, all of a sudden, I see this girl carrying a laundry basket going to the laundry room. And out of nowhere comes this man who just silently steps out and starts quietly following behind her. Well, I knew this path really well because I was over at Stevens all the time. And I knew that he did not come out from a path from the building, that he came out from the foliage. And so I had this sense of, oh my God, was because it was right at that building that she had walked out of. And I thought, God, was he watching her through the window? What is that guy? Where did he come from? And I remember thinking, I need to speed up. Now, this is where I'm showing how completely stupid I was. But I thought I need to speed up and make sure that he knows that she's not alone out here because I felt for her safety. I thought he's following her and he was walking very quietly and she was oblivious that there was anyone behind her. She's just carrying her laundry basket. So I kind of speed up thinking that he'll leave then when he knows there's someone else out here. But what happens is he catches sight of me through the reflection on the windows as we're passing. And all of a sudden I realize he's looking over his shoulder and he's watching me looking at the reflections in the windows. And I thought, oh, great. That was really dumb. Now he knows I'm here. And she peels off and goes in the laundry room and I'm now stuck on the path with him. And then I realized, okay, this is what's going on. This was really dumb. And I realized he's slowly just watching me. And I'm trying to slow down behind him to give him more time because the only place that path goes is out to that car park. The way we are going, the only where you would go is to the guest parking. And so I'm like, I'm going to slow down so that he goes and he leaves. He gets in the parking and leaves. But as I slow down, he slows down. And I'm thinking, this is just not good. So I came up with the bright idea that I would go the long way, which is to turn right and go around the bird sanctuary. And that would give him time. Then you'd come around the bird sanctuary and you're back on that same path that goes to the car park. And I thought that would give him time to get in his car and leave. But as I went around the bird sanctuary, I became keenly aware that I was in so much danger. Now I have lost sight of him. I don't know that if he didn't turn around and then follow me and coming up behind me, or if he's in the parking lot waiting for me. I don't know which it is. And I am in a sheer panic at this point because I know that I'm in just mortal danger. And I stopped and I just called out to God. I said, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I literally, I promise you, it was as if two people were just speaking to me. I could hear two voices, one saying, he's behind you, run to your car. He's behind you, run to your car, run to your car, run to your car. He's behind you. And the other voice is clearly saying, run back to Stevens, go to Stevens, go to Stevens. And I froze. I just froze and tears were just pouring down my cheeks. And I looked up and I said, I don't know which is your voice. I don't know which one you are. And I was in a sheer panic at this point because I knew that I had really put myself in a bad situation. And I thought, I'm closer to my car. I was so sure he was behind me. And so I ran in a full run to my car because at this point I wouldn't be far and I could get there quickly. The quickest way to safety is my point. And so I took off running full speed. And as I'm running along the path, right before you get to the car park is a little wooden bridge. I ran over the little wooden bridge and I know what happened. I ran over that little wooden bridge and it was like I hit a wall. I literally got thrown back. And I believe to this day, I ran into an angel that just blocked my way. But when I did that and I literally got thrown back, I opened up my eyes and crouched in front of my car, which was directly ahead of me, was the man. So had I run to my car, I would have been had. And I screamed. And then when I screamed, he jumped up and took off after me. And I ran back across the little wooden bridge. At that point, he got me and had me by the sweater and then my hair. And I was just fighting with everything in my power. I've never fought like that and got away. And he continued to chase me, continued to catch me multiple times, usually by my hair, my clothes, my arm, my sweater. It just was an ongoing battle. And I thought many times, why didn't I scream? But I realized I couldn't have. Everything in me was fighting. Everything in me was running. Unfortunately, that little path, you weave and weave and weave. It's not like a straight line. So it's hard to get a lot of momentum. So I started literally jumping over bushes. I was just trying to go the fastest possible way that I could get there. We continued to wrestle and fight and get away. And it was just crazy. And then when I finally made it back to Stevens, to the end of is all the way in the back, it was upstairs and had this kind of sideways stairs. I ran up the stairs and he stopped at the bottom of the stairs. I'm banging and banging and banging on the door, on Stephen's door. And I'm looking the whole time down at him, who's just standing there at the bottom of the stairs and grinning at me as if to say, fine, it's like a smirk, you won. The crazy thing about that is I could totally see him. I mean, clearly. It's like, are you not afraid that I can now totally identify you? I mean, while we were fighting and running, it's not like you're getting a good look at somebody, but he's just smirking at me. And at the moment that Steve starts to open the door, he just slips around the corner at the back of the building and I guess disappears. I fall in the apartment and start projectile vomiting everywhere. I guess all the adrenaline, everything, and I couldn't breathe. I was coughing and gagging, and all I could try to get out is call the police, call the police, call the police, and kept trying to say something about the woman in the laundry room. I was so afraid he was going to go kill her. And Stephen was acting so strange. I mean, immediately just starts cleaning up the vomit. And, he's like, you're okay. It's okay. No, we don't need to call the police. He's gone. He's not going to hang around. You think he's going to hang around? He knows the police will come. He's gone. He's long gone. We don't need to cause a big scene here. And I just kept saying, the woman, what if he gets the woman? What if he gets the woman? And I was just like panicking and begging him to call the police. And he was really diminishing by his actions what I'd gone through. And he was really kind of like, you're fine. You're here with me now. Nothing's going to happen. You're fine. Calm down. Calm down. I mean, I had just fought for my life, and I was just, I couldn't. I mean, I was scratched. He kind of cleaned me up a little bit. I mean, it was quite a battle. He just stayed there and he kept putting blankets on me. I think I was in such horrible shock. I was just shivering half to death, and he covered me with a lot of blankets, and I was just crying and crying. And after a couple hours, he said, all right, I really got to go sleep. I'll walk you to the car. And I just panicked and said, no. I can never go out there. You cannot make me go out there. He'll be there. And he was like, no, I'm walking with you, and he grabbed a baseball bat, which I later thought back on. How did he have a baseball bat in his house? That's kind of odd, but whatever. He wasn't an athlete. But anyway, he had a baseball bat and he said, I'll walk with you. Come on, it's fine. That walk back out there was the most torturous thing you could ever imagine. And I made him walk into the laundry room to make sure that girl was not dead. Walking out there the whole time, I was just shaking like a leaf and just an absolute train wreck. I thought he was going to be crouched in front of my car again. It was just the longest walk I've ever taken. Got in the car, left. Got to my apartment, and I had a security guard, John, that has a little guard station at my apartment in California. I just broke down, started crying when I pulled in, and he was like, what's going on? I said, walk me to my apartment. I can't walk in the dark. I can't. I told him, kind of try to tell him what happened. He's like, oh my God, I got to call the police. So he called the police and walked me into my apartment and stayed with me till the police came. And I felt like the whole Newport Beach police was descending on me. My roommate got up and sat with me, and they were like, do you watch the news? I'm like, no. They're like, you haven't read any papers? Or I'm like, no, why? And they're like, there's a serial killer that we are looking for. And one other, I think I remember if they said one or two other at that point had gotten away. And they said the way you described him was exactly the same way they described him, which he had dark, curly hair, kind of bushy, mid-30s, maybe early 30s. His hair was the most defining thing because it was curly and full. And they said, you just described him exactly who we're looking for. Why in the world did you not call? And I said, I told them that my boyfriend wouldn't let me, and they were just like, what? And they were so upset, but they stayed with me for a really long time, took all the reports and stuff. And the last thing the policeman said as he walked out the door, he said, wait, one more thing, Linda. And I said, what? And he said, lose the boyfriend, lose him. And my roommate and I were just kind of looking at each other. We're like, thank you. He left, and I quickly moved out of that apartment because I had convinced myself that maybe he followed me there when I left that night. Maybe he waited till I left and that he would know where I lived. And I just couldn't, I was so, even though logically I knew that didn't make sense, I just was so scared that he could have figured out and followed me from the complex. So I quickly moved out shortly thereafter, got another apartment in Newport. But, it's one of those things that looking back, it was such a pivotal thing to go through. And God, for sure, without a doubt, in no way had anything to do with it, but it was evil. It was pure evil, but he used it in my life in a powerful way. I mean, through that, later it was the very thing that would help me understand that Wes was who I was supposed to marry. But I quickly up and married Wes, moved out to Nashville. And then, that was before there wasn't 24-hour news. We didn't even have a TV the first few years we were married. I never watched television. And I had no concept that anything else had gone on. No concept that they caught him, that, that there were other victims. I knew nothing. And that was fine. That was what I just kind of put it behind me and went on with my life and had babies and was living my life. And fast forward years, never forgot it. It changed me radically. I'm very, very cautious now. But years go by and I am in my bedroom upstairs. Wes is at work and the Today Show's on. And Wes calls me about something. I answer my cell phone. I mute the Today Show and I can see it, but I'm not listening to it. And all of a sudden, all of the hairs on my, everything just started. Unbelievable fear. That same feeling that happened to me when I was on the path was all over me, all over again. And I looked at the TV. I couldn't figure out what was going on. There was an old man being brought into a courthouse with gray hair, long curls. And I just told Wes, I got to go. And I hung up and unmuted it. And then just as I did that, the picture of when he originally arrested popped up on the screen and my legs gave out. Literally gave out. I fell to the ground. I was just shaking violently. I just was frozen. I had no idea that all this had happened after what happened to me. And he went from that point on to murder so many people and kill so many women. And one of them that was especially hard to handle was not long after me, he kidnapped a little girl on the Huntington Beach pier. She was riding her bike to go to ballet and kidnapped her and murdered her. And I grew up on Huntington Beach Pier. I grew up in Huntington Beach, right by the beach, and spent most of my days on the pier. And that one just crucified me. And had I not been watching the Today Show that day, I probably would have never known if I'd never seen that. When that happened, when they kept referring to him as the dating game serial killer, of course, I looked it up. I didn't know anything about it. Apparently, he was so brazen that even after he'd murdered so many women, he went on the dating game and won. And the girl that chose him was so creeped out by him that she didn't end up going on the date. He knew that I knew what he looked like. He knew that others had gotten away from him. Why would you be so brazen as to go on a national television? I really think he thought probably he never would get caught. I don't know, but that was so shocking that he would do that. But I looked it all up and then unfortunately looked up, what had happened since I got away from him. And there was just so many victims. And it threw me into a bit of a tailspin, to be honest with you, because I felt so much responsibility. Why didn't I call? Why didn't I make Stephen call? What if they had come and gotten him that day? How many people may have still been alive, especially the little girl, all of them. But I realized part of it back then, like I said, I was so new in the faith and I was coming out of a culture that taught in my new faith, taught that men were in charge, that they really squashed the woman's voice and had been in a relationship before this. It was pretty abusive and pretty controlling. Not Stephen, he was not abusive, but I didn't have my voice then. And I didn't know that I could use it. I didn't know that I could say, yes, you will call and you will call right now, or get the hell out of my way, I'll call. I didn't know that. I'm not that person now. And it's kind of hard to imagine that I ever was, but it was, again, something I learned. I think from that, I got my voice a lot more. And one of the other things I learned that I think is a takeaway for all women in these situations is when Jenny was in high school, she had a stalker, and we have an ex-federal agent that lives across the street from us. And he gave me a book. He said, you need to read this book because it dealt with stalking. It dealt with other things. But it was written by an FBI profiler. And his whole premise of the book was that basically God has given every woman an innate sense of when danger is near. It kind of reminds me of like Bambi when he's in the woods with his father and he stops and he freezes and he says, man is in the woods, and he senses it. Well, I kind of feel like it's kind of like that with a woman, that you can sense danger. And he went through all these cases of women that had been attacked or whatever. And every one of them, without exception, said, I had this feeling right before and I dismissed it. And I think it was trained out of us. Like, we're taught to be sugar and spice and everything nice. And we're taught to always give everybody the benefit of the doubt and to believe the best in someone until you know otherwise. And he talked about he said a lot of women have gotten assaulted in elevators. And he said, a gentleman, if the elevator opened and he was the only one in it and the woman decided to wait for the next elevator, he would think, good for you. But we would be sitting thinking, oh, if I don't get in, they're going to be offended. They're going to think I think that they're a creep, which is quite the opposite. A gentleman would absolutely not want his wife or his daughter to be uncomfortable in an elevator alone with a man. But all these cases that he talked with these women, every one of them had a check in their spirit beforehand and didn't listen to it. I've learned from that now, and I've used it plenty since then, where I have sensed something and I'm like, okay, I'm listening to it. Even something as simple as we had a cleaning service that would come in our house and there would be both male and females. And there was one guy that came in and I instantly felt something. And I told Wes, I said, no more. And he took care of it. I mean, I follow it now. I listen to it. I believe it's something God's given us to protect us. And I mean, I'm sure God was like, when I'm going, I can't hear your voice. I'm sure he was probably like, well, yeah, I was talking to you back there, but you were quoting scriptures at me. But I was young and I didn't know any better. And I really should never put myself in that situation. I should have never said, when he didn't walk me to the car, I should have looked at him and said, no, buddy, you're walking me to the car. I'm not walking out there by myself, but I didn't. And there's nothing we can do about that now. But when the time came where I was really caught between the two men, and I literally separated from Wes, kind of came out, asked me to marry him. And I told him no and sent him packing with his ring. Poor guy had to go back to Nashville. I separated from both of them to just pray and to try to just hear what God was saying to me. And the one thing I never could shake was how I was treated, how I was made to feel like I was foolish for being upset. And I realized I couldn't live with that. I feel like, it was just a very pivotal point. But later, ironically, Stephen was talking to my old roommate after I married Wes and said, I don't understand. I don't understand why she married him. I don't understand why she didn't marry me. I don't understand. And she said, you really don't? She said, Stephen, it all goes back to that situation at your apartment. And he went, oh, Lord, you don't know the half of it. And she said, what? He said, when she walked out the door, I felt like God told me she was in danger. And I dismissed it because I wanted to go to bed. He said, when she came back in, throwing up everywhere, crying and screaming, he said, the guilt and shame I felt was unbelievable. And he said, I thought if I made it not like it was a big deal, she wouldn't look at me and say, what a jerk, you almost got me killed. And, and she goes, well, that kind of backfired on you, buddy.
Sure.
Wasn't the best approach. He married who he was supposed to marry, and she was lovely. And I married who I was supposed to marry. That's a whole nother story. But, it's just one of those things. I mean, to be honest, I battle with survivor guilt. Why me?
Of course.
Yeah, you do. You just go, why did that little girl go? Why did she not make it? All the rest of them. And there was one of his victims he killed in a laundry room. And I thought, he must have been thinking,
Targeting her.
Yeah. It may have been that's what he'd hoped. That was his fantasy of some sort until, I stepped in and gave him another idea, but it's crazy. And I know they've made documentaries about him and movies about him. And everyone is always like, gosh, did you watch that? I'm like, no, why would I want to watch it? There's no way.
Yeah.
So I lived it. I don't want to watch it.
Yeah.
But,
While you were talking, it reminded me of a poem that I sent you. It's one of the
last week,
Yeah.
that one,
Yeah.
that was so good about the voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of those poems, it originated because I just had a nudge and sent David Henson, who's the poet, Australian. I said, David, I have an idea for a poem. Can you write me a poem about who took your voice? And he sent 3 poems back to me. The first one was this: maybe your no was not enough, and dominance pushed it aside like it was never there. And you learned your words didn't matter. Maybe your silence was required and coercion whispered its lie, that secrets were safer and you learned that truth equaled pain. Maybe your story was cut short and shame covered your mouth to filter in the darkness and you learned to only be positive. Maybe now that you are safe, the older, stronger you can stand beside the little one inside and begin to ask, who took your voice? Maybe you were not created to have your boundaries crossed and your no dishonored. Maybe you were not created to hold all those secrets and all that pain. Just maybe you were not created to tell a partial story to be entirely accepted.
Wow, I loved it. I
I
sent that to several people after you sent it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, learning to have your voice, I have a granddaughter, her. She's strong and spunky and feisty and tickles me to death. She was in a grocery store standing in line, and some old guy behind her said commented some old man about her appearance, kind of in a almost suggestive way. And I would have been trained to say, because it was cloaked as if it was a compliment, but it was very inappropriate. And I would have been trained to say, thank you, and smiled or whatever and ignored it. Oh no, she turned around and laid him out. I mean, laid him out. The girl behind the cash register said it just dropped her mouth like, oh my God. And the lady behind him clapped. I mean, they were just like shocked. And then he got ticked and she didn't care. She just took him on just about how inappropriate it was that he was commenting on a teenager's looks or physique or whatever. And I can't remember all she said, but I remember when she first told me, I thought, oh my Lord, you said what? I mean, I was just so caught off guard. And then the more I thought of it, I thought, yay, I'm so proud of her. She has her voice. She says, no way, this is not acceptable, and will speak up. And I thought, yeah, my generation would never have done that, but I'm really glad that hopefully the younger generation is learning to have their voice and not put up with stuff.
And the other piece is learn to trust the voice that is the Holy Spirit inside of you, who is resident inside of you. I mean, that's one of the
Right.
things that I heard you say.
Yeah, and the Holy Spirit clearly tried to warn me.
Yeah.
And was present. And I really believe to this day an angel blocked my way from running to my car. And, I'm incredibly grateful. Am I still left with a lot of questions, unanswered things that can't be answered? Yeah. But I've learned, I think as humans, we want all the answers. When we hear about a tragedy or a shooting or anything, we're always like, what was the motive? You don't always know the motive. We want all the answers. We want to put it in a little box and be able to understand everything about it. And I've realized there are a lot of things I'll never know and understand about this, why I was saved, all those why questions. And I've just learned to lay them down at the feet of the Lord and say, you are my beloved and I am yours. And your banner over me is love. Yeah. And that's enough for me.
Yeah.
I don't have to have all the answers.
Oh, it's so good.
As you know, there are plenty of other things in my life I don't have the answers for either. And I have to just continue to believe that God is good. Yeah. I may or may not have the answers one day, but doesn't take away from the fact that he is good and that I am loved.
Oh, that's so good, Linda. Thank you.
You're so funny.
Oh, I mean, that's a tough story.
It is. It was a tough thing to go through for sure.